that's a triple play. New episodes, I couldn't wait. Yeah, open your mind at the first gate. Press play, no need to debate. AOA, check me out. Look, plugged in, you can catch the hype. Golden Dawn, how we follow the light. Anime like life, married to it, my wife.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages? Welcome back to the AOA show. I'm your host, as always, Ian, along with the boys Isaiah.
Oh, hi, yo.
And none other than Lord Heaven.
And none other than what is the Gucciest of the shoesiest.
You never failed to disappoint me, my friend. See what I did there?
Yeah, because I'm a disappointment to both my friends and family and my mother, especially. Mom, I'm sorry, but I'm not a brain surgeon. But I can't even speak, dog. Don't even. I'm sorry, Mom.
I'm kidding. It was a great intro. I meant the opposite of that. He never fails to impress me. That's what I really meant to say. You're a good guy. Anyway, Tower God today is what we're talking about, covering Season 3, Episodes 19 to 28. It was a fun stream, so definitely go check it out. The link is in the description down below. It's under AOA Reacts, our reaction channel, where you can catch all of our live read-throughs and reactions. And we're coming close to the end here in terms of catching up to Tower of God. So if you're hopping on as a new viewer here and you want to catch some of those final live streams before we can't, condense a whole chunk of it anymore and get our initial reactions, you definitely don't want to miss it. Now's the time. Head on over AOA Reacts channel and you can catch our live stream there. Also, you want to check out our blog posts coming out on the channel this week and our other discussions relating to Tower of God, some of our rankings videos we do in conjunction with Dr. Bonehead. We got it all here for you. But today we're talking the 7 most upvoted questions from our Discord that we got an hour after our live stream. You definitely want to join that Discord too. We had some repeat questions because some people are just really good at asking questions, apparently, because they get a lot of upvotes, and they were very interesting and different. So we have those there, but don't be discouraged if your question did not make it. Sometimes Isaiah and I, or if Gavin's available, we'll cover the second part of our question series where we will take just questions that we want to answer, if they're fun, if they're from somebody that we haven't got before. So we try and be inclusive with everyone, so don't be discouraged, ask away. Anyway, today, though, we have 7 questions, and they're good ones. So, Gavin, if you want to start us off.
Oh, I just got to brush off the dust. All right. First question we have from none other than our resident sleeper and greatest human on the planet Earth, Dr. Bonehead. We finally gotten some insight into Yama's character with these latest chapters. Despite him being a loner, he's taken it upon himself to lead the canine people because he cares about them as individuals. Have your thoughts changed on Yama at all? Looking at you, Isaiah, with the little white emoji. So, if I'm not gonna lie, I can't answer this first. Joe is looking for blood, bro. He is like, he has Isaiah in the crosshair. So we need to get his response. We need to.
Does he double down? Or
No, Yama's definitely. I mean, I don't like Yama's character. Like, he's not one of my favorites, just to be honest, because like that character archetype, I find it a little played out and overrated. It doesn't jive with me. But I will give Yama credit. He is like in this society, in the cage. Like, he does seem to be the best fit, like as a leader. Because I mean, like, he has the whole thing where he cares about the canine people in the pack, and in a society where strength is like basically currency. Like, literally, who better than somebody like that? Someone like Yama to lead those people. And as long as you have that. Somebody with the strength to back up what they say, and somebody who cares about the people, you're doing good.
All right.
Okay.
What do you think?
Right. And we'll circle back to me. I like Yama. I don't know. He's really grown on me. You can say what you want about him. I don't know. He has one of those personalities that just kind of grows on you. Like, he's funny. He has this own, like, he's obviously a loner, selfish. Definitely, especially with how he rules his people. But I do think that he at least seemingly has his heart in the right place, and it looks like he wants to do the right thing to a certain extent.
Could you say, sorry to cut you off, but could you say that he's a little selfless, though, after what we've learned, rather than selfish?
It's back and forth, because it is selfless, but it is also selfish. Like, it's how he leads his people. Like, it's one thing where he wants them to not, be used in a sense, which is how his brother wanted them to be, or Doom, be taken out with terms of, the canine people. So it is caring in a sense what he thinks about him, but at the same time, it is very much like, I'm the king of these people, like, they are my servants, and that's where like the selfishness comes into it. But at the end of the day, it's like he still wants them, to like live how they're supposed to live in his mind, which is, a ranking status based off of power and things like that. So it's like, I can see where he's coming from. I think it's pretty cool. And I respect a man who needs his sleep for the amount that he does and has to be unbothered with it. Because, I feel that energy and he feels that correctly. So yeah, I respect him. Nothing but respect for my boy Yama.
He's a big boy. He needs his sleep. He needs a lot of food. He trains hard. Just carrying around that mass of muscle everywhere must be pretty tough. You got to conk out for a while. Black hole when you wake up. But no, I like Yama. I'm not going to lie. At first, I was probably in the camp of, okay, this is probably a little outdone and overplayed style of character. And, some people are always like, oh, Ian, you're going to love this guy just because they're like that. And fair enough. I guess sometimes a joke around, it seems like that would be the go-to character, but it's not necessarily. I don't know. I'm not always like, no, I'm not just going to like them just because they are like that. But to be fair, Yama has grown on me quite a bit, and I actually do like him now. I have to say, out of all of the dog people, one thing, which might seem trivial, but to me is a big deal considering I had issue with the whole canine species thing to begin with, is actually his character design. I actually really like his character design a lot in comparison to some of the other ones. Just in terms of his menacing appearance, it seems like for me, the dog features are very secondary in terms of the ears and all that kind of thing. In a way, the character design incorporates it well, where some other characters I can't help but always stare at it, right? Where it's some of the other ones, I guess, for whatever reason, right? Whether they have the collar spikes coming out with the really big pronounced ears and stuff like that, where he just on his own has this cool character design about him. I love the long flowing red hair. It's really cool. And the way he dresses and all that kind of stuff. It's really sweet to see. So, I mean, I know that's a small thing, but I do appreciate that. And like I said, I think there is something to be said, harkening back to what Isaiah said, where it's this is a character that, we've seen it before, right? You could fit almost every character in every shonen or story or whatever into a certain mold to an extent. And it's a very few and far between when a character breaks that mold, when you'd assume they'd be there. So Yama is really no different in that respect. But one thing now, with the light of these chapters, that I do respect about Yama is this flip side to it, where it's this show of strength, and they respect him for that. And, he's definitely the king of the dogs, right? He's the head honcho here, but he genuinely does give a damn. It's not just oh, you're just pathetic, anyone, you know what I mean? You all just get crushed for no reason type thing. You're all expendable, like his brother. And I think that's something interesting because generally speaking, from what I've seen in my personal experience, this kind of character archetype would be that, right? Or generally speaking, are the ones that are, okay, nothing but strength. And honestly, anyone who wasn't on that level is just incompatible. You don't really get them going past the surface and being well, what about the free will of these people? What is it that how do they want to conduct their lives, and how do they, I don't want them to be subjugated to this sort of higher power in the elders of Fug and be used as this militaristic force. I care about this family, this pack, no pun intended. And I think that adds a little bit of depth to his character, which is really cool. I also like his ability to that attacks don't affect him if you're afraid of him. I thought that was a cool concept, and obviously in line with his character. So I like Yama. I think going forward, depending on where we see him, if it's till the end of this arc or if it's onward, I have a feeling he's going to be a pretty big presence. So I'm excited to see what he's all about, and for him to really cut loose, and if there's anything that we may have missed when it comes to his backstory and all that kind of stuff to get fleshed out later. But anyway, any other thoughts on Yama? Okay, so moving on to the second question we have by Anaketh K. Thank you for the question. Anaketh asks, what do you think about the fish's comment that Khun is no different from the pig whose name nobody cares about? Will the fire spiral out of Khun's control, or will he find a way to manage it in the end? Who or what will Khun's flame consume? How will this influence Khun's character arc in the future? Joint question with Riru. So yeah, definitely a packed question here. It was interesting because we just read SIU's blog posts before this, and one of the things that he highlighted was he wanted to put forward this idea that it wasn't necessarily, oh, Khun got this new ability, but rather this new ability kind of got Khun, right? He has to deal with this ability rather than he gets to use this ability. So I think that's needed. I like that personally, that there's a large caveat to it, because quite frankly, this ability for its positives are insanely powerful, right? So long as the light isn't snuffed out completely, you still have an ember in SIU's words, you could spark it back into a flame. That's very powerful, and enhancing the straight raw power of anyone in general is always something that can be very useful, right? In situations where you need it, for sure. So that's cool, though, that he has such a downside to this and that he can be consumed by it. He's got the Todoroki vibe going where he has the ice, so it seems to be that's the only thing that's staving him off from it completely consuming him. So that will be interesting to see. I guess it's really, he can't use it, like he can't spam it. That's really it. He has to use it sparingly. And there might be situations I could see a lot down the line where maybe he has to choose between using it on one or the other person or something like that. That kind of like, you know, is he going to sacrifice himself by using it on both? Is he going to use it on one so he doesn't lose himself, etc.? There's some cool things to get opened up there. The fish is a dick, just to answer that question, just a mean guy. But it seems to me that it's a spirit. We got the talks from Ivan Khel that the Yan family was blessed or given the flame to destroy anything and the flame to heal anything from the ancients, and that flame has dwindled, but it's very powerful. And to me, that seems like the actual element itself of fire and this ancient thing that like it has an actual spirit and a consciousness to it. So that's my guess, is that the fire either deems Khun unworthy to wield it, or that, you know, human trivialities are just something to be passed by, where it's like, why am I in your body? Like, you're no different than anyone. You're using me to your own ends, something like that. That's my guess with it. But I'm curious to know, I know there's more to this question, but if you guys had any thoughts on that part or anything following as well.
Yeah, I don't really think that, or let's put it this way. I don't think ultimately it's going to like consume Khun or kill him or anything like that. Like, I think at some point he'll get a handle on it. But it is interesting, this idea that like everybody, well, not everybody, but like, you know, several of our main characters now have, in one way, you know, like the sort of like 7 degrees thing, like one tie to these ancient ones, right? Whether it's Khun with the fire thing, Rak with his heritage. You know, it's interesting that these powers and power-ups and whatever aren't just like, you know, oh, cool, like I leveled up, I got a new ability, and like now I can just spam this shit and do what I want. It's like this thing that like Khun's gonna have to contest with, and also this thing that like seems to, I don't know if I would go so far as to say it has its own agenda, but like that it's not just content with like existing in Khun and like just letting him, you know, use his its abilities however he wants. I also do just like conceptually this idea that like Khun, this ability of the Aeon Flame can both amplify other people and heal other people, but that it's destroying him, or that like it, while he's doing this to other people, it is something that he has to fight against in his own body. And like you said, you know, I'm sure his ice Shinsu like is definitely what's helping him with that. So I am curious to see like where this goes, if the, because I'm sure that the comment that the fish made about him being no different than the pig is probably because this is not the first time this power has just been, you know, chucked to somebody else that either it wasn't intended for or it's not the original owner of. But I have a feeling that Khun is going to be different in the sense that he might, you know, come to terms with it or overcome it, or, you know, find some way to tame it, in, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, no, it's definitely interesting, especially when it seems like this ability is used in, you know, important situations, as in helping people. So, like, it is kind of like an eye-opener when the fish says that, because it's like, oh, you're no different from the pig who used me before. And it's like, okay, well, was he using him in the same sense to save people? And, like, why would you get angry about that? So it really, like, kind of opens up, like, a wormhole of just, what is this fish on about? And, like, what are his actual intentions? Like, does he just not care about humans? Is it a Khun thing? Like, is it, like, user error, or just does it not get, like, it does open a whole can of worms in that respect. So it definitely is interesting. Hopefully we find more information about it soon. For me, I'm wondering, in terms of management in Khun, if it will take a certain flame user that we know from the Yeon family to actually help facilitate this power, whether like a little training montage with Khun or something like that, because, I mean, who other, like, I don't know, it just seems like a really cool opening that they're creating for, you know, Yeon to just come in and, like, you know, meet with Khun, do this thing, like, explain this power, help him facilitate it, and even maybe take some of that power and, like, learn something from herself, or even take the power altogether and it just kind of buffs her up to the next level. Although I don't think that would happen. I feel like it's more of a facilitation thing with Khun, but I do think they are going to create a chance for our female flame user to pop into the picture and really make like, you know, another staple couple panels for herself and like just solidify her, you know, a couple rings up on terms of being a favorite character. So definitely interested to see if that's the route that they take, but who knows? The story could just throw it all on its head. So we'll have to find out.
That would be cool. That would be
Yeah.
justice. You know, it'd be cool to see Eon get her due again. It's been too long. Great character.
Yes. Question number 3 is from Alagus. Thank you for the question. They say, so Khel Hellam seems to think that he can take Ivankel and Yama 2v1. Do you think that he is very confident or maybe bluffing or maybe just plain wrong? What do you think will be the outcome of the fight? Yeah, I don't know. I felt like 1v1 he might have been able to take either one of them, but I feel like with both of them now, it feels a little stacked like against him. Granted, I mean, I guess I don't really know the full extent of what Kel's power is, but I mean, you know, Kel and Yama are already just, again, by themselves, 2 incredibly stacked characters. So the fact that they're teaming up, I don't know, my instinct, you know, if nothing else, is just saying that like his elder's gonna have his work cut out for him, whether he can get out of this or not. I could also see bluffing because, like, you know, that he maybe, you know, he's putting on this air that like, oh, you guys are in like for some tough shit, but he's like, oh, I hope this fight doesn't last too long, because like, you know, they might be able to just out endure, like if it's a game of endurance, like the elder might be the one who is power scaling and like physically stronger, but he might not be able to last in a fight against the both of them going back to back with him as long. Because I kind of feel like, actually, again, both of them, like Kel, if I had to pick 2 characters in our cast that could probably take a beating, it's probably Yama and Kel. They both look like they've taken beatings and look like they could give one. So like, it's just, I feel like he kind of just got picked, unless it was Bam, like the 2 worst characters to go up against in this fight, because I feel like they'll just outduke him. Yeah, I don't know. These elders are like weird though, because I don't really know. First off, I don't know if like this Khel is like a lone wolf thing when it comes to the elders. Like if he's kind of here doing his own shit and the other elders like don't really fuck with that and they're like, hey, what are you doing? Why did you just run off on your own? Or if he's acting on behalf of the elders, period. And like, you know, the other 2 just didn't get the memo or didn't feel like showing up and they're like, Khel, go, you know, take care of those kids. Which again, that seems to be like the main, you know, again, the main plot thing here, right? Is that like we send under the amount of people that we probably need to go handle Bam and company because we underestimate Bam and company, and just like who's with them and stuff. So I feel like maybe, like, again, that's why I'm like, they probably like sent 1 elder because they were like, that's more than enough. It's 1 like just an elder, you know what I mean? It's like some regulars and maybe, you know, Karaka or whatever. But it's like, now that we've got Yama on teaming up, we've got Kel, like it's starting to look like a little bit more than I think just 1 elder could bargain for.
What do you think, Gavin?
Yeah, it's escaping my mind, but they mentioned that in one of the panels where they're like, hey, you know, elders of Fug don't normally get into our business. Like, what are you doing? And he actually says something afterwards, if anybody can clarify, because it was relevant to his presence, why he's there. I just don't really remember. Whether it was something to do with Destiny or not is what's throwing my mind out. But for me and Khel, I feel like this fight is complete confidence because, I mean, it's alluded to that this guy is super old, like dare I say ancient, I don't know, like in regards to what SIU said, you know, not pre jihad, but you know, he's just really fucking old, and he's with that blue hole, if that is the right term that I'm using, with that the red-haired chick. So it's like he's definitely existed for a very long time. He's been pulling these strings with the canine people for a very long time in terms of, you know, the whole having the heart kind of drawn out with having a spell wrapped around it with Doom and all these other things. Like, it looks like he's been lining his ducks up in a row for a while, and he's existed for a long time, and it's pretty obvious that he is very powerful. So for me, looking at it, I would take it more as a surface value, is this guy just really thinks that he's like on a plane similar to like a god, in a sense where he's like, I could just literally come down and do whatever I want because I've literally been here for longer than anybody's ever, like, than you guys even existed. Like, I know the way this land works. I know what I need. I know what I want to do. I have my motive. I can attain it. I've already set up everything. I've set all my ducks up in a row to be, you know, shot down. So like, for me, it's just like overwhelming confidence that he just, he knows his power. He is like 100% sure that he can just take care of anything that comes at him, because he had to probably drop down so many floors just to even get to this point. We're on floor 52. It's like God knows where they're even residing at. So he's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna stroll down the tower. I'm just gonna mess shit up, and I'm an elder. Fuck, like I can do whatever. Like it's just I can do whatever I want, and nobody's gonna say anything or do anything against me because I'm just so powerful. Like not just a little regular and like Yama, a couple canines. They're not gonna do anything. Like come on, and that's how I feel his mindset is. Whether it's right or wrong, I mean, we're going to find out. But I do think that it's not going to be as easy as he anticipates, and that is going to be a very hard lesson for him to learn in that moment in fighting. But I do think that he is starting it off of confidence that it's going to be easy as cake, not a problem at all. So I guess that's my view on it. And yeah.
No, good thoughts. Not really too much to add there. Besides, I think that he is genuinely confident that he has this against those two. Maybe not that he's going to destroy them, but that he is confident in his ability to fight them and come out victorious. He did just like shrug off getting hit. Well, not shrug off. That's too much, but he did eat that spear hit. And although it did, stifle his healing, so he had to kind of bring them to another spot in the arena there. So it was definitely a big hit, but I guess that spear would normally kill anyone that it hit. So just the fact that he's alive is pretty impressive. And he also has the spirit ancient ability of this like water buffalo thing. So that'll be interesting to see if he has that fight the elephant, and then he has like the arrows and stuff doing its own thing. He kind of put Ivan Khel and Hansung for a moment there in their spot. He was like, okay, that's nice that you shot this fire at me, and his arrow went right through it. So that was pretty scary until Hansung was like, okay, utilize the fire in this way. So I think that raw power level, he's probably above them, but just them exploring his ability and knowing how to fight against it and working in tandem in that way, they'll probably come out on top. So that's my thoughts on it. Not too much to add there, but if you want to take the next question.
All right. Question number 4 we have by Irene Sharda. Thank you for the question. So we've now met the final and oldest of the Baylord brothers. Doom doesn't seem to care about the canine people and has been an overall jerk thus far. However, we get to see a small flashback into Doom's past and his anger at the 10 great families, especially someone from the Lopobia family. What are your thoughts on Doom here? Doom is definitely an interesting character, and I feel like there is a lot of layers that we haven't seen to him yet. That doesn't mean that I agree with the plans that he has put forth so far, because they aren't really the best, very much for the canine people. But I can step in his shoes and see from his perspective, though, being that they existed. Him and his 2 other brothers, they don't know who their parents were. It's just been them, and he has this great power and is able to give it to other people. And for being isolated and just not really having anybody else, and he's just like, all right, it's just us, like me and my brothers. Like we need to care about each other, and everybody else is almost irrelevant. Even if it's somebody that I give my power to, they're, you're not my brother. Like, they're not my brother in a sense. So why care about them? We can use them. We have this power. We could do XYZ thing if we could join Fug and, get revenge or, alleviate that anger toward the 10 great families. So I can see his mindset on where he wants to go with it. However, morality and other things are what is the real obstacle and barrier to get in the way, because he is messing with other people's lives at the end of it through literal mind control, and that's a no-no. On anybody will tell you that's a no-no. So it's very interesting. I'm wondering to see as the fight progresses with Khel and Yama, seeing where he stands, and just honestly, if he's able to flip a mindset, or even if not, and he literally just has to die, because unless he was to switch sides with the power that he has, for me, it's either he has a change of heart or he dies. Like, especially since he could just raise an army by a snap of a finger. So yeah. It's going to be interesting. I don't know how I would feel either way that it goes with him, though. Like, it would feel awkward if you just had to change a mindset, and now it's like him, Yama, and what's the other brother's name? Paul. And they're just like, oh yeah, now we're like brothers. We're gonna like really do the canine family or the canine people right, and go on their own merry little way and have their own kingdom. Like, I don't know. That just seems too not easy, but like too good to be true. It would be I don't know. I feel like it just kind of answers death for him at the end of all of this, and I don't even know. It kind of sounds messed up, but I can't see a future with all three of them, living a happy life, or even if he existed for him to live and not get out unscathed just from the raw power that he has, if it isn't redistributed to somebody else or really like cut from his bloodline. So I want to see where it goes from there, but I can see from his perspective where he's coming from, although it's wrong in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's going to have some sort of change of heart, because I don't see it going back to, well, Yama even says, I can't see him again. For whatever reason, he can't see him again. So, and if he died, like, this is the whole thing with Bomb, right? Where he's like, we can do both. And I think it's going to work because I'm like, well, I think there's an opportunity where, like, he dies or something like that. And, but then they all die out. But I don't think they're going that route because I think they might play a role later, unless Yama's like literally the lone wolf at the end of it and buddies with them. And he's like, good luck. But I don't think that seems to be in his character. So yeah, unless they could find some skirted way to where Doom dies and they still have the ability to do whatever. But it doesn't seem that that's the case. They seem to be pretty put a corner here. So Doom's going to have some sort of change of heart, or even if he doesn't have a change of heart, at least agree to keep them alive but not enslave them under fear of dying or something. That seems to be the way to go. Thoughts on Doom, though, in general? Yeah, definitely the dick move to use them as pawns and mind control them. I mean, when you have that ability, not that anyone here or watching has ever had it, but definitely easier said than done, I would say, probably for most people. The great power comes with great responsibility thing. So he seems to be in this 10 great families wronged me. I'm really pissed about it. I want revenge. I really, I just got my brothers and that's all I need. So everybody else is just kind of fodder and I'm going to join Fug and this is going to be my way of going about it. But it seems that Yama here needs to be the one to pull him to earth a little bit in conjunction with Bomb and team here, because he seems to have strayed, and even though these are things that spawn from him, or the canine people spawn from him, and he has this ability, that doesn't mean he should abuse it in that sense, because these are all people with their own lives and stories and feelings and consciousness and emotions and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, just let them live their life, but we'll see how that goes down. But yeah, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, Doom is weird. I don't really know how much more, because I guess if we're with this whole War of Jihad thing, if we're going to utilize the canine people past this arc, then I do kind of feel like he has to make it out of this, because whether Yama signs up with Bam and company and starts traveling with us or not, if they're going to be a bigger part of this game, like, we need Doom. That's just kind of just like, like you said, unless we fucking MacGyver some tech or tool that can just make it, which kind of then makes this whole arc irrelevant. But so I feel like Doom, and if that's the case, Doom has to be around, whether it's he has a change of heart and maybe Yama goes with the gang and Doom with his change of heart agrees to stay behind and run the cage, but like do it right. Maybe Yama doesn't go with them and him and Doom stay behind, and maybe even Doom doesn't like have a change of heart per se. But so like you were saying, he just agrees to to not run it, to not get, not get corrupted by his former way of thinking. Because like sort of like Gavin was saying, like, it's not right in any sense, but like I see the line of thought, right? Because it's like Doom, like he has this power and he's turning these people into canine people, but it's not the same thing as like being born a canine person, right? So that coupled with the probably severe trauma that he suffered from I forget the specific name, but the Lopobia person that he referenced in that flashback, and the familial bond he feels with his actual brothers, he probably does, like, it makes sense why he started viewing these regular canine people as like lesser than, or like not the real deal, because in a sense they're not. They are people who were turned into canines, which is not the same thing as being born naturally a canine person. It is weird, the specifics around how Yama, like how these three brothers came into existence or being, is like shady. We don't really know, like that you were saying, that we don't know their parents and we don't really know, how the fuck they exist. My money's on the workshop because the place is sketchy as fuck, and it just seems like something they would cook up. But again, just because I see the line of thought doesn't mean in any way, shape, or form it is condoned, because taking advantage of anybody under any circumstance is basically 100% wrong. So yeah, the only way I see Doom dying is, like I said, if the canine, because like us needing Yama and us needing the canine people are two different things. If we need the canine people, like we need them for an army, or we need like, that's when I'm like, okay, we can't really get rid of Doom because he's kind of the whole reason that the canine people even exist. But if we just need like Yama, the Slayer, yeah, Doom can die, and the canine people can kind of just whittle out, or it's sad, but like if that's the way the story wants to go, they become not a necessity, quite frankly.
Yeah, messed up scenario. I don't like
War,
it.
son.
It's war, son. All right, what are we on? Question 5 here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, question 5. Say my name, mate. Say my name, mate. Thank you for the question. Say my name, mate. Asks, Khun is at his limit and Dang Dang is barely alive, with his real heart being in Louis. Do you guys think this will have a happy ending or sad ending? Also, I got confused on whenever explosions have I got confused on whenever explosions have distracted from the story. Passive aggressive question. Looking at you, Ian. Oh, also, did you get confused, I guess, or something like that? Ha! Funny, but I like the use of the emoji with the mustache one. I love that one. Yeah, so the question, do I think it's going to be happy or sad ending? Maybe somewhere in between, I guess. It's been pretty rare, correct me if I'm wrong here, that we've had an arc where it was just all bad per se, although that couldn't be subjective at the end of the day. But in terms of main characters still being intact and the whole world that they inhabited going to crap and all that kind of stuff, I feel like it's generally on the side of happy ending with like a sprinkle of reality in there, right? If that makes sense, kind of like the Floor Death arc maybe, right? Where like I would consider the memory wiping not a great thing, right? Like that kind of sucks because they're subjugated to this thing, but then on the same time, like their whole thing, they all, Hell Joe was stopped, right? So like that's the good thing, etc. I don't know. So I feel like that's the trend that I've been seeing so far. So if anything, then maybe there's something where it's, there's like some sadness in it where they couldn't get absolutely everyone, but they are all out in one piece, or they are able to remedy this whole situation. It does seem like a black or white thing though, especially with the prior question referring to Doom here, being that Doom's got to get his stuff together, or they got to convince him, or he's got to play some sort of game. Because I guess that would be a bad ending in the sense that even if our main character's there and Doom doesn't agree and or dies, then those people either whittle out or get mind controlled. So that's not a great ending. But based off of prior trends, my money's on that it will be some sort of happy remedy to what's going down. I feel like the seed has already the seeds have already been planted for that, as in, oh well, Dang Dang's not dead yet, right? And Khun's power can alleviate something, and he has a heart in Louis, and Doom is now being betrayed or whatever by the Fug Elder, so maybe he sees it a different way with his past. And there's like a lot of these inklings that there's the possibility for them to put all the pieces together perfectly, have the stars align, which they normally do, and then remedy all of these issues in one fell swoop. That's kind of Bomb's whole thing. He's not, and that's why Karaka's going so batshit, because Karaka doesn't understand that Bomb's the protagonist, so he doesn't understand that's all going to work out for him. But logistically, Karaka's like, you're nuts. How are you going to do all this? But it's Bomb. He's always like, we're going to do both scenarios. I'm going to have my cake and eat it too. And most of the time, it pans out, I would wager. So I wouldn't be surprised if it ended up the same way this time. Long-winded way of saying maybe somewhere in the middle. And do I get confused whenever there's explosions, and do they distract me from the story? Absolutely. Yeah. My mind can only focus on one thing at a given time. I can't breathe and chew bubblegum at the same time. It's quite impossible. But no, on a real note, I do have to say though, during read-throughs, there definitely is, I mean, if you guys experience this, maybe not, maybe it's just me, but sometimes there are points where I miss something because I'm focused on the voice or trying to make sure that I'm not messing up the wording, because sometimes the translations are a little wonky, or, making sound effects or some crazy thing to keep it engaged, because at the end of the day, we're entertaining, we're trying to entertain. So there are times where I'll miss something on a panel or like miss a thing, and I'm like, whoa, how did we get here? And it's like, kind of got to recollect and remember when you're reading it in the comfort of your own home, in silence, it's easy to just hone in on a specific thing or reread it a bunch of times or whatever. So there are definitely points, but if it was in the sense of just there's a lot of explosions, so there's, it's kind of distracting from some of the main story, I would also say that too, personally. Hot take there. I do think there's a lot of spectacle going on and a lot of different characters doing different things. So I will say on that kind of note that it definitely does a little bit. But again, we talked about this, I think, last week. If that's where it's going, so long as they nail that, if that's your cup of tea, then you'll probably continue to like it. But those are my thoughts.
I definitely don't think this ends like completely 100% happy. I think it's either going to be sad or like some weird wishy-washy middle ground, because like we said in the last question, the whole thing with Doom, it sort of implies that, again, depending on how we want those people to stick around, Doom's either going to be alive or dead. And Doom dying spells out death for this entire species, basically. And then even the thing with Dang Dang, it's like, okay, Dang Dang's heart is in Louis, but does that mean we're killing Louis by reviving Dang Dang? Because we don't know if Louis has 2 hearts. So he might, which doesn't make any sense. Like, we've seen people carrying around somebody else's heart, like they wouldn't have 2 hearts in their bodies. What's the other heart going to do? So my thing is, I think the story is sort of setting itself up to be this thing of like, no matter what option you pick, like, you're not getting your cake and eating it. Like, somebody is going to die, whether it's Dang Dang, whether it's Louis, whether it's Doom. Somebody, you know what I mean? And I think, I would like to think that as we're approaching this jihad war, scene, that it's like, this is what's going to be the reality, right? Because when we get up there with the Lopobia family and Jihad's empire and all them, like, people are going to be dying. You know what I mean? Not everybody's going to, we can't have a war where everybody makes it out. That's just not, it just doesn't exist. It's not a thing. So, you know what I mean? I would like to think that this arc is sort of like, yeah, you're recruiting people for a war. This is the consequence of that. Sometimes good people die.
Hope it is. What do you think?
What's interesting for me, in terms of Dang Dang and, his heart being in Louis, is honestly the raw question of why. Because, I mean, at the end of it, there's no need for them to do that. Dang Dang, by all means, is just seen as a vessel for Doom's heart. So why would you have to save his, like, if you didn't plan on bringing him back in the future anyway? So honestly, the fact that they did it in general throws me off a bit. What I think is going to happen is that it's going to be a sad ending, and that Louis is going to come out of the woodworks and actually give up the heart, that, like, whether he knows it's his heart or not, being Dang Dang's, or it is later told to him. I feel like he's just the type of friend who is like, this is yours, like, I'm gonna give it to you so you can live, I want you to live. And like, by that, it's gonna be some weird thing where, like, Dang Dang's like, oh, like, Louis did this for me, he will forever live in my heart that lived in his body. Like, it shares some, like, sort of connection, like a spiritual sort of deal. I feel like that's how they're gonna continue with it, because I also feel like Dang Dang is just a more relevant character than Louis at this point. So I feel like if they're gonna keep one of them, it's gonna be Dang Dang. And what better way to wrap it up with a bow than to make, Louis be like, I want to save Dang Dang here. This is his heart. I'm giving it to him. And there's that connection between them. And then, you just like throw some glitter on it and call it a happy, like, birthday, and that's just the way that I see it
Happy
going
birthday,
down.
Louis, give me your heart.
Happy birthday, Louis. Give me your
Just
heart.
the grunt birthday party. Yay! Don't we have that on the soundboard?
The what?
The yay thing, the like confetti thing. Yeah, they just rip his heart out and then blow confetti everywhere.
Yeah, for real. It's gonna be like.
Yeah. Dang Dang's alive. Louis, sorry. But then where the hell's Louis' heart?
What?
Is my thing.
Well, that's what I'm getting at.
Is it like, then we got to find Louis' heart. And then it's like they're just going there.
No, and if they do that, and it's a never-ending roller coaster of catching y'all's hearts, I'm gonna literally throw myself off a bridge. But that's the thing, where it's like, why save Dang Dangs at that rate? And then it really comes down to, Louis got lost in the sauce unless they have it in a frozen jar somewhere and bring it back out. Which, if they do, I'm killing SIU.
Let's be real here too.
So yeah, it's.
Do we really care if Louis goes out?
But that's what I'm
Well,
getting at.
if I remember correctly, at the beginning of this arc, they make it a point to, like, remember when we were looking for Louis at the beginning, that, like, Louis is this, like, weird, like, he's not like a normal kid. So I would go so far as to say that Louis may be like the end point here, because he's like what was manufactured to keep Dang Dang's heart, and then Dang Dang is the vessel for Doom's heart. But I mean, because that the other option is just so dumb. Like, we're not going on like a wild goose chase of like everybody's heart is just like one trail down the line.
I'll be real.
Here.
Like, I'm personally here. I'm gonna need a pretty good explanation, because quite frankly, I think that all 3 options are dumb. Either Louis has 2 hearts, dumb. He doesn't have his heart, and we got to go on a wild goose chase for a bunch of people's hearts. I doubt it, but dumb. Number 3, the fact that if Dang Dang is supposed to be strictly a vessel for Doom, who wasn't cared about to begin with, unless there's some thing with Gato where like he actually did care and he was just putting up a facade, could be that.
Because he tells him that right before he kills him.
Is what?
Gato tells Dang Dang right before he kills him, he's like, by the way, your real heart's in Louis.
Yeah.
Why would he tell him? And then I know you would probably say, why would he tell him that if he's about to kill him? But
No, I wouldn't. I get it.
Well, not you. Like, I'm just talking through these words.
Oh, sure.
Like, another canine person knows that canine people don't die immediately. So he knows he's not actually killing Dang Dang. Therefore, by telling him that, on top of knowing that, he's giving Dang Dang the opportunity to live. So I do think that Gato, like, says, like, oh, you're just a vessel. But I do think in the time that he spent with Dang Dang, being his fake father, there might have been like some legitimate feelings of like or connection that he developed with this kid, and therefore like
was he his legitimate spawn? Was like like is he his biological father, or is he just like some rando that got like pushed off?
No, I don't think he's actually got.
So I guess my question there is then, like, they never really went into what made Dang Dang beyond that special, beyond that he was a vessel. So I guess my question there is then, like, why play this game of hopscotch and freaking duck duck goose with people's hearts? Why then not just make, like, say Louis the thing, right? Like for the vessel, and then skip the part where you have to put Dang Dang's heart as Doom's, right? Like you just make Louis the vessel then, or like whatever. And that's where I'm not.
Unless it was something at the time where it was, we got this kid Dang Dang, and it was told from Yama to Gato, where he was like, all right, this is what's gonna happen. I'm taking out this kid's heart. I'm putting in, my brother's heart. This is how we're gonna facilitate it, and not even go into that detail with it. But I mean, like this is actually because Gato didn't know all the information from Yama that wasn't his kid. Didn't Gato find out later on that this was actually Yama's plan and this really wasn't his son, or was he cued in from the get-go?
No, he knew.
He was cued.
Dang Dang was
all right, so if he
know.
was cued in from the get-go, then it leads me to believe that there might have been a little bit. He wasn't Gato wasn't fully on that plan like to begin with, and with this, he was like, they're taking this kid's heart, blah blah blah, and I'm gonna have this connection. Maybe if I can just kind of scoop it and throw and like put it somewhere else for when this day comes, I can swap it back, which you're just screwing over the next person being Louis at the end of it. But, it might be just one of those things where he feels bad in the moment and he's like, I'm going to try to, do something for this kid. So I kind of feel bad.
Because remember when Dang Dang is going through his backstory, he says, my father never let me hang out with anybody like in the entire cage except for Louis. Like he always made these weird exceptions. So I think Louis, like, as tough as it, like he was just the scapegoat. He was the thing that made it so Dang Dang always had a way out. At least in the minds of people like Gato and actually probably just Gato, because I don't really know if like Doom or anybody actually
but
cares
then
about
like
him.
where's Louis' heart? You know what I mean? Like if that was the thing, it's like why even have to take? Because that would mean then Louis either has 2 hearts or his heart was ripped out and replaced. And so it's like, unless he had like some heart transplant surgery, if he had a weak heart and he put in Dang Dangs until the time that he needed to revive Dang Dang, and then he's like, okay, like I hope you enjoyed your life up to this point.
I don't know if
I don't get it.
I don't know if like maybe Louis never had a heart of his own. Like that's why I think like maybe there could be some artificial creation path where it's like Louis was not like some kid who was born, but he was something that was made, and they were like again literally made him to be basically a container to hold Dang Dang's heart, so that Dang Dang could. Because I think.
But then my thing there is like, why not then make him the container?
So I think Dang Dang shares DNA with Doom. Like I think not anybody can just be the vessel for Doom's heart.
Sure.
I think that's why Dang Dang specifically has to do it. But Dang Dang was he was a kid, an actual kid who had his own heart. So in order to have Dang Dang house Doom's heart, you needed to take his heart out and put it in a container, basically Louis.
Yeah, the only thing that would make sense is if Louis was literally like not organic, like not an organic life, because they all share DNA with Doom is the thing, because they all spawn from Doom. So then if
they have his power, not his DNA.
No, they literally need, he is like the progenitor to all of them. So like without Doom, like it's Doom. Like he's like replicating these people and then has the ability to mind control them. So like theoretically, everyone besides his 2 brothers, his real brothers, have Doom like within them. That's why they'll die off as well if they don't have him. So my thing there is if Louis an actual canine person, then he'd be in the same boat is my point, which means that if he was a container in that with that thing. He would have to be some sort of like inorganic life.
Well, I don't think he is. I don't think he is a canine person. Like, I think he's just.
He doesn't have the ears?
No.
Maybe the ears? I can't remember. Shit. I don't know. We're going off on a friggin' wormhole on this one. Point is, I hope they give some sort of like logical and, sensible conclusion to all of this, because I personally am just like downright confused and maybe missing some of the details here, but we're going to have to see how this ends up.
There is a weird thing, though, that actually somebody in our Discord brought up about this kid thing where when Khun meets the kids, he refers to, I think I'm fucking this up, but he refers to Louis as Dang Dang. He goes, "Oh, that guy's Dang Dang."
Yeah, I heard that.
And then Bam's like, "No, like you got it mixed up." And Khun's like, "What do you mean?" Like, and he finds it. He like sort of talks in his head. He's like, "Well, that's weird. Like my intuition is never wrong. I was sure that was Dang Dang." And that's supposed to be foreshadowing the fact that Louis has Dang Dang's heart in him.
So maybe then Dang Dang was the scapegoat. I don't know. Crazy. Anyway, let's move on to the next question. I believe you have it, Isaiah.
Yes, it's from Anaketh K. Do you think Yama has done a good job as a king so far? Do you think that he'll change in his leadership style going forward? If you do, what do you expect/predict? I'd give him like a middle of the line C so far. Do you think that he'll change in his perspective? Again, this goes into, I don't know if Yama's like going to be with like if he's going to be traveling with Bam and company after this arc or not. If so, then I don't really think it matters because he won't be in the cage. So, he can't really like lead the cage being outside the cage. But if he stays behind and it's sort of like a call on me when you need me type beat, then obviously like he'll be here, he'll have opportunity to change. And I would like to think that this encounter with all these other people, specifically somebody like Bam, will leave him a little bit more open into, I don't know, maybe the problem is the structure that we have here, the way the cage is run, is very cut and dry. Like there's very little wiggle room in terms of like how this society works for anything other than basically a dictatorship via strength. So I wonder if that would involve then maybe him changing the literal structure of how the cage runs a little bit. And like maybe we don't have to like do a whole, 180. But, maybe introduce some level of democracy into it where it's like, okay, I don't know. Like there's maybe like, the runner-ups have like are sort of the representatives of the regular canine people or like whatever. I don't know. But again, this is all just assuming that Yama is going to be staying in the cage afterwards, which like I said, I think is 50-50. But yeah, I think, to be honest, I think that's the only way that significant change is going to happen. Because if it's just like he does the same thing, but it's like he like hands out ice cream on Tuesdays, it's like, okay, that's not really like doing anything. Or like, you know what I mean? Like he's nicer to the people overall. It's like, maybe this is like just a personal thing, because I personally think the structure of the society is like kind of what leads to stuff like this. So, like, if something there doesn't change, I feel like we could, potentially just run into the same gambit with different people. But, yeah.
Yeah, and would they even want it to change? I don't know. Gavin, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I honestly don't think that it, so as far as being a king, I'd probably give him the same rating, like C, or C. And I don't think he would change, because he even makes it in the middle of fighting when, what's his name? Calzone was thrown into the mix, and he was like, yeah, if you don't, and he was like, oh, I'm gonna fight Gatto, and he was like, yeah, if you don't beat him, Jordan's my new number 2, so just like watch out, make sure you win. So with that in the middle of this fight, that's still his mindset. And just honestly knowing the type of person he's, being a lone wolf who really respects power in that sense, I don't see him really changing his leadership style in the sense that what Isaiah was talking about, in just the structure of society that he has built, unless there's like real fundamental changes for it, it is just going to kind of be the same power vacuum, and the same problem's going to happen reskinned. And
what is interesting there, though, I apologize for cutting you off, but just when he says if you don't beat him, I'm gonna make Jordan my number 2. Mm-hmm. We noticed that Calzone, whose name I actually forgot because you keep on calling him Calzone, Kanzon or something. Kanzon smirks. Mm-hmm. And he goes, okay, like, there's my guy. You know what I mean? Like, he's back. So it's like, I think it like adds this element where it's like do they want it to be different? You know what I mean? Like, would they thrive as much as they have, like based off the kind of beings that they are? You know, there's like this aggressive tendency where it's like they just, you know, I don't know. I find it interesting. I apologize for cutting you off, but it was that just popped into my head. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, no, and that also goes into what I was going to say in terms of it wouldn't change because of the way the people are. And the only reason why we really have gone down to the route that we have been is because of the problems between the three brothers. And unless that problem is, you know, solved in some weird way, and say 2 or 3 of them survive and they're all happy-go-lucky and they're going to go run their own, you know, kingdom now, theoretically it would work because we wouldn't have the, you know, interceptions that we have in terms of, you know, an elder Fug and, you know, Bam and all these people coming in and intercepting at different angles. Like, theoretically, they could just live how they used to way back when if all 3 of them were on the same page running it, you know, as that sort of unit. And that's, you know, even then, if they want to live like that, okay, then they can. But, you know, it's going to have its own problems down the line. I just don't see him personally changing his leadership style. But maybe with the addition of his brothers, if they build that relationship and they all come out of it alive, that something could happen of it where they keep the same, like, societal structure and keep just moving with it. And that's really their choice. But I just, I don't see him, like, having a huge change of heart and being about it. Like, morality, he might have, you know, the right idea, but just... It's their lifestyle. It's the way they seemingly have always lived. So I don't think they're going to really part with that when it comes down to brass tacks. But,
yeah, I think I actually think the more I read this question and listen, the more we've read, I actually think that Yama is a better king than most people at face value would give him credit for, because I think one thing that's very important to delineate about Yama versus your standard average, you know, king in some sort of you know, like society that runs differently, right, than the canine people, is that Yama, I feel, is actually very good for what his for part of his society. Sorry, I'm twisting my words right now, but the point is that I think the context that Yama rules in, I actually think he does well within the context of that. Whereas if you compared him to a king that rules over some other style, then it's like, oh, okay, well, there's obviously glaring problems that Yama would pose, but that's just the thing, is that Yama isn't a king in that sort of society. So I think that he's not like a perfect king for sure. I don't want to pump him up too much because he's not like the greatest king ever. And he even admits he has his own problems. He's more of like a lone wolf type. So it's not that he even really enjoys leading per se, but I think one quality that I really appreciate about Yama, especially in these chapters that we read, is that he does the kingly thing of putting his people first before himself and being almost like a servant, not a servant, but like serving his people in the sense that he does a lot of things to guard them and protect them, but also let them flourish. And I think that is the mark of a good leader and king, to be able to put your own people first in that respect and help them along with that. And so you could argue that it's like, okay, in their society, like weakness gets crushed and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, in the sense that he was willing to succumb and give up to the Fug representative dude, the elder guy who looks like the face hugger from Alien, you know, that he stopped fighting, right? In that moment, he tries to put up a facade there, but he says, you know, like, I'm not going to let my people do that. And the fact that he fights with Doom and he doesn't kill him, even though he had the ability to do so, and tries to keep him contained like that because he wants them to keep on propagating, and he doesn't want Doom to be handed over with Fug. Like, he makes that shady deal with Fug, but he does it on the premise that these people aren't going to be mind controlled and utilized. It's really just him taking on the burden of being a slayer and being part of this organization, but it's not his whole familial unit as a whole. So I actually find that pretty admirable that he puts a lot of his people first. So I don't think that he would change a lot of his leadership style past this. Again, he's not perfect. He has his flaws for sure. But that's the thing. I just feel like within the context of this society, I don't know if it behooves him to actually change his leadership style a lot, because like these guys have said, I think for that to work, it requires a whole restructuring from the ground up, but I don't know if these are the sort of people that want that or would be able to acclimate towards that. Like, you know, they're people that transform into these big beasts, and that, you know, they have these aggressive tendencies and they enjoy competition. They're fiercely competitive. It's like, you know, I don't know if they would respect a leader that, you know, rules in a different style if the whole society isn't on board with it. So I think Yama's in a weird situation, but and he's got some character flaws to get over, but I think he's not doing terrible, all things considered.
If Doom dies, I suppose you can make an argument that getting rid of the canine people doesn't, because again, if these people were people first and then turned into canines, like perhaps that's a lot of where the like agreeing with how this society is structured comes from. The fact that everybody shares this like innate, I don't even know what to call it, like chemical connection, because they're all bred in a sense from the same thing. But like if they were just regular people, then I suppose you could make the argument that like that would be enough of a structural change that it's like, oh no, well we want more now, like than just fighting. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, maybe at that point, there's an argument to be made for like actually making the society something different.
Yeah. The only thing is I don't think he rules them at that point, because the implication is that the canine people themselves cease to exist. So then it's like, I don't think that it's like, oh, that gets rooted out, and then he goes and he's like, let me find some new people to hop on board. It's like those people are still canines. They live out their lives, but they just don't have other ones. So it's like, yeah, it's a weird call. But anyway, moving on to the last question here. Gavin, take it away, my friend.
All right. Question number 7 by Irene Sharda. Thank you for the question again. The only Red Witch we've spent a significant amount of time with is Hawariyun, and she has dedicated herself to being Bam's guide. We met another Red Witch here, and she seems to actually feel pain simply being around Bam or trying to look at his path, which she can't trace. What do you think of this reaction, and does it change your perception on how Hawariyun is able to work with Bam and guide him? Not gonna lie, this is a very interesting question, and it still is stumping me and has for a while, because I really didn't think about that until it was explained. And I even think something was brought up with Evan where he didn't get a physical headache, but the paths were blurred for him as well with Bam, in terms of really like being able to predict or find out what's going to happen in the future when it comes to his specific case. So with Hawariyun, it makes me feel like whether she's working around it, it's one of two options for me. And if you guys have more, this is the only thing that comes to my head. And it's either she is using the context clues of looking into the paths of the people who are close to Bam and around Bam and is able to kind of piece them together in terms of the journey that they're going on, and is trying to like really connect the dots and like try to facilitate something like using the people around Bam. And she doesn't really know his routes per se, but is able to kind of be like, we're with XYZ people, we're doing XYZ thing. I can see this happening, in these people's, paths in the future. And I'm assuming we're going to be like with them. So how do we kind of, guide around like those obstacles? So that's my first thought with it, which would really be hats off to Hawariyun, because she has to put in double time to really like make sure that the people around her are, like that she's on top of what's going on and all the paths being taken and able to reroute them. It would take a lot of intelligence from her to do it, and I don't think it's outside of her skill set. The other way that I can see going about this, if she actually physically is able to look at Bam's paths, and although they might be very cloudy and not clear, she was almost chosen in a sense to be the one to guide Bam because of, X connection from somebody, whether ancient in the tower or whatever going way back when, and, is the only physical guide with the ability to somewhat work with Bam and really like guide him through the tower. And until we get that explanation on if that's the case, how did she get this power? Was it granted to her? Was she born with it? How did she know? Was it, told to her by someone, like Arlene or whoever, like people from that time or friends or colleagues that were able to feed information and give her insight? Like there was a lot of question marks about Hawariyun and how she is able to really work with him and, the connections that she ultimately has with Bam. So it's one of those relationships where she is so interesting, and especially with just how she comes up with their plans and, really just focusing about Bam, where there's like her whole face should just have a question mark tattooed on it, because there's just so much like unknown information about her. So definitely interested to find out, but that's all I can come up with. I don't know if you guys have any other ideas about this question.
Yeah, no, they were good ones. Ones that I was thinking, and I guess other ones just throwing stuff at the wall is that maybe she does experience some sort of similar pain, but she hides it, which would be interesting because not that I think this is the case, but if it was, that now with like looking back, it's like every time that she's done this, she's put through herself through like the ringer, or she's just that much more talented as a red witch. She's like one of the pinnacle ones, so she is a thing with Bomb. I think it's a connection thing personally, if I had to choose, but just throwing some other options out there as well. I do find that interesting, and I think Hwa-Ryun has a bigger role to play than maybe some people might think. I mean, she's played a really big role already, but maybe even a bigger one. It does seem very interesting. I don't know how their powers scale, if there are ones that are more talented than others, or if it's just, I don't know. You got anything on this one?
I think it's pretty much the connection thing. I kind of have this feeling that like guides in a weird way are like they get like one person that they're intrinsically linked with, and like that's the person that like they can guide like through and through, and there like really isn't any problems. And it's when they deviate from that, when guides are looking into other people, like there's like there becomes varying degrees of like inaccuracy in doing it, right? So whether it's just a smaller scale thing of like, oh, it's like vague and I can't really make out a path, or it's an extreme on the extreme end where like it physically hurts you to look into that person's past, or not past, but like their path forward. I think Hwa-Ryun was specifically like chosen by the gods, whatever that means in this tower, to be Bam's guide. Like she's the one guide that can guide Bam up the tower, you know. But the only thing that's interesting is because like then I guess like that line of thought implies that like that guide, once they link up with that person, can 100% see what's going to happen with them, and like, you know what I mean, like follow their path with 100% accuracy. But Hwa-Ryun has stated several times that the most interesting thing about Bam, and I think it's actually the reason that she decides to stick with Bam, is that she doesn't get that from him all the time. There's a lot of times where she's like, he's walking this path that like I didn't see, or I genuinely didn't think it was an option. So maybe even if it is a thing where like she can see most of his path but doesn't can't see all of it, there's more of like Hwa-Ryun as a person and as a human that makes her stick around with Bam, as opposed to like doing her job as a guide. Because I definitely think that's where it started. But again, personally, I think one of Hwa-Ryun's big character arcs here is going to be thinking more about dealing with Bam and like this mission in terms of like who Bam is as a person and who she is as a person, rather than Bam the irregular and Hwa-Ryun the guide.
Good thoughts. Yeah, that's all I got on that one. Anything else? You're giving a weird look, Gavin. The gears are turning.
It was weird. No, because it was actually super irrelevant, but I was wondering if it was actually, this question is almost aimed toward whoever that blue angel is, and like her directly feeling pain from looking at Bam, because obviously whether it's the blue angel, I think is what it's called, is, they were given that name because they've almost like kind of were cleaned off the face of the earth.
A blue hole or something?
Or blue hole, yeah. Sorry, I know you guys butchered us and told us to remember.
Like
the girl.
Oh,
that's who they're
okay.
talking about.
Yeah. No, yeah. I used the blue angel thing.
Yeah, but I mean, it's alluded to with that whole definition. I know you guys said we need to remember it in the comments. I'm sorry, but it was pretty much she existed for a long time, almost fell off the face of the tower, and then just kind of came back. They don't know of their existence, so I'm wondering if like she herself ties back to like the start of the tower when Jihad was coming up, and maybe like the fact that she maybe knew Arlene or V or these people, and like because she goes back this far, that now seeing someone so far in the future with this tie directly correlating to people that she knew, like that's causing physical pain on her. Because like I said with Evan, when he was having problems with looking at Bam's like future, it didn't look like he had any indications of physical pain in a sense, whether it's a red witch thing or not. It's just like it's weird because I don't know, I feel like that whole pain thing, it's going to be specific to that person as a guide, whatever her name was, and I think it might actually be because of a tie that she physically has that we might find out in the future when we get a revelation on just who this elder is and what role he plays in it. But I think it might actually have something to do with that guide specifically, and her actually playing a potentially important role in this whole overarching story and what hasn't been told yet.
Oh, okay.
So that is.
So what if it's like maybe not the fact that like she knew V or Arlene, but it's like maybe because she's so old in the sense of like the time span she's been alive, maybe because she's so close to whatever ancient or godly beings gave birth to Bam, like created Bam, like it's that connection that like is intrinsically causing her this like this reel back of like, no, you're not allowed to peek at like this vessel of ours, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like it's not so much about V and Arlene the people, but like we said, there's heavy implications that Bam is not like 100% his own person in a sense. So what if she, because she's so old, she knew or worshipped or was a part of or whatever these original beings, these original gods or whatever that gave birth to Bam in a way. And so like that's that connection is what's causing her to be like, whoa, there's like this thing I'm feeling. This is like, it's weird and familiar, but also like, yeah.
Yeah, I think there is something more to it, for sure.
Interesting stuff. Good question. Good questions all around. Thank you to everyone who participated in it. Honestly, it makes our lives a lot easier and more fun when you guys participate on this style of content. So please keep going. We appreciate it. But that's all we have for you guys today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you guys are smashing that like button for the YouTube algorithm. Comment your thoughts down below. What did you think of our discussion? The questions, how would you have answered them? Is there anything that we may have glossed over? Obviously, don't spoil anything. We're getting really close. So we're almost there, and then you guys could talk to your heart's content about all that sort of stuff as well. Make sure you guys are subscribing to the channel and hitting that bell if you're new here. If you made it this far into the video, you should definitely be doing that because that means I would assume that you like us at least a little bit. So why not just subscribe? It's free. It takes you 2 seconds. Like I said, also check out AOA Reacts, link in the description down below so you can catch our live stream and our future live streams that have to do with Tower God and anything else. And beyond that, we have a comment of the day. Gavin, if you'd like to read that comment of the day for us.
Ooh, and our comment of the day is brought to you in part by Fan de Correa. Thank you so much for your comment. The question was, who named the 3 Baylord brothers? So the answer is the 3 brothers are Yama, Doom, and Lord Paul. I just want to leave a small tease on something Gavin mentioned on today's questions of how much he liked Yondas. I don't know the spelling. Skill on the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, because it is a skill that someone has and will be shown. So if you guys want to take this as a bonus random question, care to theorize who it's gonna be? A hint: it is a known FUG member that has been introduced visually before and is not the Elder.
Oh, it's not the Elder, because I was going to say, well, I guess it's the Elder because the arrow seems to be going in every which way. So that's interesting. So I guess if it's directly correlated to Yondu, it's not necessarily that the arrow takes its own path or whatever. It's that you control it via whistle or, well, I mean, in Guardians of the Galaxy, it's a whistle, but, somehow, some way, shape, or form. So I don't know. It's a FUG member?
Oh, a FUG member that has been visually shown before.
Wasn't there...
Or introduced visually. So that doesn't mean that we were given a name.
Yeah. Remember way back in the beginning of season 2 when Karaka is first introduced and you don't see him, but Jin Sung is on the rooftop after the Wangnan.
Yes.
He's like, "Oh, Karaka, you're here." I could have sworn that he makes a reference to another Slayer, and that the person is mentioned, and you see them like way off in the distance, but we don't get to actually see who they are.
And wasn't it actually like a sniper in a sense or something like that?
It was a scout, I think. It was somebody who was watching them.
Yeah.
And I don't honestly, I could be remembering this wrong, but I just remember this because I remember in that moment, like there's literally one panel of this person shrouded in black, and then like story just moves on and like but like it's there, and I'm like, okay, who is that? Presumably another Slayer that we'll meet eventually, but that person being a Slayer would tie them into FUG, so that person could be a possibility.
Yeah, and it would make sense with that ability if it was a scout in a sense, or even just something, because, if they were to take out people from a distance, that seems like the ability to do it, especially if you can just control it with your eyes, your mind, or whatever to, go brrr, and then bam, track a target. Oh, I think you're onto that, Isaiah. I like that.
Yeah, that was a good comment.
That was a very good comment.
That was a good one for sure. Thank you, Fan de Korea, for commenting and for watching until the end of the video. Really do appreciate it. Question for today. Does anyone have one?
What is the name of the person that gave Khun the Eon Flame?
Okay. Good question. So answer that in the comments down below, and then comment your comment. We might just read it in our next discussion video. Also, big shout out to our patrons, especially our acolytes at Anime, Stoic, and Nathan. We love all your beautiful faces and all of you that support the channel in every which way, shape, and form. But until next time, folks, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you all on the flip. Peace.
Peace.
Ninjas and samurais, blazing the kunais. Find me in the leaf of the cloud, screaming out Bankai. We just some ghouls though, who like seeing parts fly. They like what you saying, Goma got more through the storylines. I tested your neck from the start, my hunters gon' come for your heart. I promise you'll land in my boulevard, left them in one piece, no